Hues and nuances of pinks, purples, oranges and reds. A heart-opening moment of calmness and stillness. It's when the first star starts to sparkle and the last starlight goes out. The golden hour. Hello, I'm Sarah, back in your ears, humming around your lobes, with the lovely Lonna today as she drops some more of her channeled, deep, wise wisdom. I can't wait for you to listen. Welcome, lovely.
Thanks for having me back again.
We were just talking about the golden hour because it's sunset time here in Madrid. And what were you saying about that, Lona?
I was saying because the sunlight was just coming in so beautifully across your auric field there, and I could see it all shimmering. I'm like, oh, it's sunset time, which is my favorite. Um, Sunset, so the golden hour is the hour, it's the hour when the sun is coming up, after the sun has come up, and the hour before the sun goes down. So it's the highest frequency time on Earth. It's kind of like, it's called the golden hour because we have kind of like higher frequency, golden frequencies kind of coming in, which is why everybody also, like when I lived in Mexico, when sunset time came, everything stopped and everyone just went to the water. And it was this coming together of everyone. Like everything just stopped. People just stopped what they did. They went out and like whatever they were doing, wherever they were, they would just stop and watch the sunset come down. And it was like this unity of everyone just being like, let's take a moment to breathe and let's take a moment to connect and just be in this energy and be in this moment and be unified. Even when someone's sitting right beside me that I don't know and we're in the silence together, it's a unity consciousness, which was really beautiful. Like we don't really have that in Canada, but that's my favorite time of day. I would go and I would sing and like do my bowls on the beach, and it was just beautiful. Like, yeah.
There's something about it. I absolutely love sunrise and sunset. I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch the sunrise and then suffer the whole day just because it's worth it.
It is worth it. And also, it's almost like that breath, like especially in the morning, it's like that breath before like the world wakes and gets up and like everything is in motion and movement. It's like we can take that breath and that beautiful kind of like graceful entryway into the new day, into the dawning of what's to come. And I think it's so important that we take that moment, that time to just connect with self, connect with our breath, just connect internally. And it really does shift starting the day in a different way, I think, because there's this silence that's around us. Everyone's still sleeping or kind of in their own space. And it's just like, there's a silence. There's a lot of movement in our world. We don't have a lot of silence. So when you can find those moments, it's nice.
Definitely. Just something just came into my mind. What about cold water swimming in Canada? Are people into it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's a thing. Like they're in the water as soon as they can be, if I'm honest. And last year we had such crazy weather. My mom and sisters and I, we were all swimming in the lake like in October. Mm-hmm. Like I've never, like when we were kids, we would run into the water on Thanksgiving, which is always kind of like second week of October. We would run in, jump in the water, our brains would freeze in a second, and we'd run back into the cottage and stand in front of the heater and just be like, yeah, we went swimming in October, which we clearly didn't. But this time, and like kids also like, they're a little bit more resilient to the cold. But we were swimming in October in Ontario. It was crisp for sure. But, and also I just came from, ocean water. So like it's extra cold for me, but yeah, it was beautiful. It was very crisp, but yeah, people like it. And the more north you go, and everyone's into the cold plunges and stuff now. And, like resetting your nervous system. So I definitely see that becoming more popular. I'm not about it, not gonna lie. I am very affected by the cold. I think I'm very small. So like I get so cold so easy, like instantly, and I'm just shivering. Like
Yeah.
so I'm not a huge, I mean everybody gets cold, but I feel like it, I don't know, it just seeps into my bones and I
Yeah.
just like get bone colds. It's not my favorite cold
Yes.
plunges. Have you done that?
People jump into the sea in Ireland throughout the whole year. So we'd like dip in for a few minutes, maximum 3 minutes in the winter, and then run back out again and get as warm as possible. Like your legs turn purple. You're literally walking around with
Freezing.
purple legs.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah. I've done the whole like, get out of a hot tub, roll around in the snow, and then jump back in the hot, like we do that in Canada, like
Yeah.
maybe not now as adults, like when we were younger. And I
Oh,
don't really like hot tubs anymore. I don't like the chlorine. I try to stay away from it. But as when we were younger, we try to just go around, take it as long as we can. Everything's tingling on our feet, and then that entry point back into the water where you're just like like when you're just cold and you've been out like in hiking for a couple hours in the rain or something, and then that shower, it's one of the best feelings in life. I'm not joking. Like not having a bath in Mexico for a year and a half, like, or like not having hot water in the rainy, like when I was on my motorcycle and it was cold and it would be raining and then I would get home and there's no hot water. Like there's just things that bring
yeah.
you joy, little small things, and a hot shower, a hot bath is one of them for me
Definitely.
anyway.
So, how have you been feeling energy wise?
I'm a bit tired, if I'm
Mhm.
honest. I feel didn't really sleep last night, but what's happening, what's been going on, it makes perfect sense. So obviously we've just had everything. We've had so many things happening. The full moon, and then we had, the eclipse on the 14th. We had another eclipse on the 29th, which, was pretty heavy. And we've been in that eclipse portal for the last couple of weeks. And we've been having some, well, last Friday and over the weekend we had some pretty crazy solar flashes, like coronal like sunspots are kind of, we had two really big ones come over the eclipse and following that, um and we're just hitting, there's like a 7 to 10 day period coming up where we're just going to be seeing more solar flashes, more anomalies with the weather, like all these, earthquakes and stuff that are happening. Like there's just like this crescendo point, I guess, that's happening. And we have these frequencies coming in with, these solar flashes. Like the solar sun energy is the masculine consciousness energy. So each time there's one of these solar flashes or these coronal outputs, it's a consciousness upgrade. It's an upgrade to our consciousness, but we are also activating our physical body, because our physical body is the first part, because it can't receive and integrate these higher frequencies if it is blocked, if we're not healthy. And I know we talked about this on the last podcast, but this really is the focus right now, is we are slowly allowing in the frequencies from these big kind of solar pulses, and the body's working hard to integrate these energies so our frequency raises, but our frequency can't raise if our vessel isn't clear. So our frequency essentially will integrate when our body kind of like levels up to meet the frequencies. So we need to align to meet them. And right now our physical body is, it's either very tired or I'm finding the extremes of being like extremely energized in the process of kind of trying to find that balance between. And I mean, this can present in many, many ways. There's so many ascension symptoms happening right now with people. I'm having a lot of digestive stuff, but we're seeing extreme fatigue. Like people are tired. People are tired. People are feeling very dense, very heavy. There's a lot of headaches happening, lots of pressure in the eyes, a lot of pressure behind, like in the forehead and the temple area, also a lot of pressure in the back of the neck, because that's where we integrate higher frequencies. It comes in generally through the back of the neck, where the neck and skull meet. And tinnitus, a lot of people are having ringing in the ears because that's frequencies coming in trying to integrate. So don't stress about that. Just try and allow that as much as you can. Insomnia is huge, extreme insomnia, either sleeping for huge amounts, huge, way longer amount of hours per night, or not sleeping at all, or having increments of sleep, not getting deep sleep. Itchy skin. I personally have been feeling a lot of itchy skin. I know a lot of my friends have as well. I haven't looked too far outside of that if others are, but I know the people around me that are quite evolved are feeling itchy skin. And it's just weird. Like, to me, the way I describe it, it feels like there's like spider webs kind of falling onto my body. Like, it feels like this very light energy. It's just weird. I don't know what it is, but the way it feels is like kind of spider webs on my body. And that's been a couple of weeks that's been happening. So acne, our lymphatic systems are purging, our hormones are kind of realigning and evaluating, activating other elements. So like our hormones are off, so we could be having menstrual issues. I know that a lot of women, myself included, are their moons, like their cycle is coming at different times, with it's channeling with the eclipse. Essentially, it's like it's not making any sense. Like, it's restructuring our patterns and our habits in our body. So don't stress too much. If it's not as regular as it normally is, just rest as much as you can.
Have an Epsom salt bath.
Yes, always, always. The Epsom salt bath helps a lot. And just, being compassionate and allowing and soft with self, like, that's so important. Mouth, teeth and gums. Gums are receding, teeth are moving. Really weird. Like, a lot of people are noticing that too. Like, your teeth are aching. Upgrades that way, which is weird. Changes in the hair as well. Appetite. So we talked about this on the last podcast, where there's points where it's like we're eating a lot, or we want to fast. Like, I've been having a lot of digestive stuff, or my digestive tract is kind of upgrading, and the food I'm putting in my body is extremely important, because it's just like I can't digest what I used to, and I feel very bloated, and just like there's a lot of weird kind of symptoms happening with my digestive tract. It's kind of like purging all of these things and kind of regulating. It feels, honestly, like there's things coming out of my body energetically and like on levels that just like feel like it is like it's been there my whole life, or been there since childhood, or been there because like we release physically the emotional stuff that we're working on as well. It comes out in many forms, and crying, coughing, yawning, laughing hysterically. Like, there's releases that happen that don't make sense too. So just allow yourself to just like get it out as much as you can. And also the opposite of that, like increased sensitivity, increased creativity, increased heart connection, insane dreams. I work in the astral plane when I'm sleeping, so I don't generally retain dreams. But there's crazy dreams happening, and they're very active in your subconscious, telling you kind of like, okay, look at this. This is something to heal or something to look at. And also, like, we are tapping into the positive aspects, being more creative, things coming through, solutions to problems that we didn't have before, or just finding another way, finding a different perspective, coming from a different avenue, and like just finding new solutions, which is opening ourselves up to more creative ways of interacting with ourselves and interacting with kind of the world around us, which is pretty cool. So yeah, there's lots of release energy that's coming in with the Schumann resonance these days. There's a big one that came in Friday, but these big flashes we are integrating right now, and we're going to be seeing more coming in too. So it's really just all about the release and integrating energy right now. And really, like, the old narrative like must die. That's really what it is. It's what we've done before, what we've told ourselves before, how we have to transform into a new way of doing and a new way of being. That's really, really important. And the energy required right now is just surrendering to the flow, like allowing yourself. This to me right now is the biggest thing. Honoring your physical body, and also surrendering to the flow, allowing yourself to be led by source, by God, by spirit, whatever that is to you, and to shift the way that we are moving individually within our own life. within our relationships with others. How are we creating? What are we creating? Where does it come from? Like, what are we tapping into? Are we tapping into new areas of creativity? Are there just things that are kind of coming through? Because we're being gifted a lot of access through our guides right now, through our cosmic team. So who are we creating with? Who's around us? Who is kind of with us in this energy as we're moving into the new way of being, as we are activating our higher frequency? Because the people that are around us are just as important as our own frequency. Because as much as we can be in self right now, which is what is being asked of us, is to truly go deep within and honor your own process. But it's also surrounding yourself with people that are moving with you into that frequency, that are doing the work, that are, because you're helping each other, you're feeding off each other's energy. So if one's doing the work and the other isn't, you're kind of pulling the other one who's trying to move forward in a slower kind of timeline pace. And we need to be conscious of that, but also allowing of where others are too on their journey. And it's finding that balance between both. So yeah, moving from the thinking aspect, which is the mind, and into feeling, which is the heart. That is the way of the new world. And just allowing ourselves to be led where we need to be, because we need to heal this trauma. The generational and like ancestral trauma that's coming up right now is just, it's all there for us to heal. There's so much power in that. There's so much that we can do to empower ourselves and our ancestral line, and to heal the things that our ancestors couldn't, and to finally heal these deep woundings in our lineages, in our bloodlines, because we can. And it's actually required of us to actually integrate into a higher frequency. We can't bring all of our shadows and aspects. It's not going to be a perfect world. Like, I don't want to paint this picture of like the new earth, everything's like sunshines and rainbows. We're still going to have the polarity experience there, where like it will be harder, but there's still going to be discord and conflict and things. Like, it won't exist as much, and it won't have as much base to hold. But it's not like this new world, this new way. It's like, it's up to us, and it's a consciousness, and it's an intention of moving forward in your own way from the higher frequency. And when all of us individually are doing that, it's us coming together in the unity, and that's what shifts the consciousness. So every one of us is playing a role in that aspect, and we can only take charge of how we operate, but what we do ripples out to the whole. And that's really, like, that's the big aspect of what we are doing. What is our narrative? Like, how does it change, like, the way I see myself? Negative self-talk. What am I telling myself? What am I feeding myself? What am I putting in my experience? And really, like, you don't have to justify yourself to anybody about who you are, especially yourself. And I think this is a coming home to self. This is like a permission to allow ourselves to be fully and honestly empowered in who we truly are, and to bring these fractal aspects of self, these soul fragments, these uninhibited parts of self, and bring them in and integrate them into the now. We just become whole and part of who we are. And the more we align to that, the more we surrender to the possibility that there's deeper parts of ourselves that maybe we don't know yet, and maybe we need to find, or maybe others will bring out in us when we find and align to, where we're at and who is meant to be around us. And if I can say anything right now, it's trust and surrender that we are led, that we are truly in a space of you just being and sitting with self, and we don't have to figure it out. Like, the biggest thing is to connect to source, spirit, God, and letting that move through us, letting that guide us, and let that create through us, as opposed to us needing to create something externally. Get that out of your head. That's a thinking mentality. It's like, what do I need to do? It's like sitting down in front of a piece of paper and coming with your mind and being like, I think a good idea to create here now is, and that's how we approach things, as opposed to just being like, I'm going to just close my eyes and whatever's meant to come through comes through, and that's how I'll create. That's how I'm going to move. I will be moved by spirit moving me into what I need to do. And when you're held and when you surrender to being held by source, by spirit, by God, and it's working through me, and it's doing everything for me. I don't have to do anything, I just have to be. And that's the biggest thing, is like, again, getting out of our own way and allowing ourselves to just honor your body, slow down, and just sit in silence with yourself, be in nature. It's the ultimate transmuter. I know we always say this, but ask yourself. I did this last week where I was like, I need a frequency, but I don't know what to do. I don't know which frequency. There's a frequency for everything. So I just asked my guides, I'm like, what frequency do I need? And they told me 728, which I'm like, okay, I didn't know what that was for. So I looked it up, and it was like dissolving toxins. And I'm like, okay. And it felt right with what's kind of going on with my digestive tract. It's like, we need to release the toxins and the heavy metals. And my guides told me. I didn't question it. I was just like, okay, so I guess I need 728. But when I looked it up, it resonated. And it's like, we're being fed and supported so much, because this earth experiment that we are in has never been done before. We have been planning and prepping so many lifetimes for this exact moment right now. And so there's no right way to do it. Yeah. Oh, confirmation. Oh, I got them too. Yeah, I like it. But yeah, like there's no, like, it's actually so simple. And again, this is like us getting out of our own way, and we complicate everything. We really do. We create these obstacles that just aren't there. It's in our mind, because we don't expect that it can be this easy. And I'm not saying the process is easy, but we can make it easier on ourselves if we just give ourselves what we need. Simple things: good food, clean water, cleaning out our body, eating well, detoxing, and just not getting caught up in the external narrative. There's such mental strife right now. Like, there's deep anguish due to the confusion state that we're in, and there's more external, like the stuff in the politics and the weather. Like, there's so much happening to create this fear space, and people right now are feeling stuck. They don't know which direction to go in, and it affects their personal confidence in self. So, and this is also a reaction to, like, things aren't being handled well around us. Like, there's no safety in the world that we're in right now, being like, oh, my government has me, I'm held in this. Like, there's nothing externally that's holding us. There really isn't. We don't feel safe. We're confused. We don't know what's going on with the ascension. Everything's in chaos around us. So really going inside yourself, going internal, slowing things down, and just allowing yourself to just like be held and not figure it out, not need to know the answer, and just allow things to come and to surrender. And that is so hard to do, to just let ourselves be and just allow and surrender. And that is the biggest thing, because everything is chaos. Everything is crumbling in such a short time, and that creates this frenzied energy. So it's very easy to get caught up right now, and like, the big flashes that are happening, and like the 3 days of darkness that are coming, and the solar flares, and like this unknown pending doomsday, narratives, which I don't think are doomsday personally. I think it's all on how you approach that. But there's so much there to keep us fearful. And really, if we just trust and surrender to where we are, then all that frenziness kind of phases out into the background. And it's just like, my reality is slow and intentional and calm, and whatever's going on out in the world, it's not like I don't know, but I'm anchored in self, and that allows me to just not worry about what others are doing. Like,
as a result, it creates our own safety. Like, when we ground ourselves to the earth, when we cleanse our energy, when we go inwards, when we don't think about the future, and ask our monkey mind to just stop for a little while, we actually end up creating our own safety.
Exactly. It's earthing, it's grounding. It's like, it's just taking that moment to being like, well, what do I need right now?
Yeah.
It's just like, the world's telling me this, but it's like get away on all that noise. It's just like, what's best for me? And it doesn't have to make sense. We got a lot of weird stuff coming in, and grounding into the earth. Like, Gaia is going through some stuff, and we have our energy body is directly connected to her energy body. What's going on with her is happening inside us. And for us to align to her and help her is required to earth, is required to ground. It's required to just go inside and be in that silence and commune with nature, commune with Gaia. She's showing us and telling us where she's at. And the message I got recently is this interesting kind of play between Gaia and the sun, where my guides kind of explained it in a way where they're like, so the sun is like the masculine, it's like the consciousness. So these are the upgrades, the activations, the frequency shifts that we're feeling. And every time that the sun gives off one of these coronal masses, these coronal outputs, that's an activation for Gaia. And so Gaia receives that energetically into her grid, into her womb space, essentially. And she integrates those energy frequencies, and then she outputs the frequency to us. And then we integrate in the activated frequencies that she's integrated in. So the way that works is this symbiotic, cyclic kind of relationship between the masculine sun, the feminine Gaia, where he's outputting, she's the vessel to receive, and then we are the external experiment of that, the external expression, the external creative energy of that. So how much we align to Earth and her processes and her patterns and her expressions, the more aligned we'll be to these frequency shifts that are coming, these activations, these whatever. We don't know exactly what that looks like and how that's going to come, and whether it's going to be one event or a couple smaller ones, I'm not sure. My guides are kind of saying now, like, the 3 days of darkness are more towards like the end of the frequency upgrade, where it's like all these things are happening, things are activating. There's kind of waves of beings that are activating, first, and then they're helping the second wavers. And like, it's kind of like, the wave of volunteers. It's kind of pretty much like that, these awakening phases of the ascension process. And each one that activates is going to help the next wave awaken till I think we get to this point where it's just going to happen. And how we integrate that energy in is how we integrate that energy in. And we will be in a somewhat of a stasis space. I know I kind of talked about that with this whole paralyzing kind of effect, but the messages I keep getting about this, even if it happens tomorrow, I do want to put this out there just in case. So it's like, when this event happens, these days of darkness, it's really important that we pretty much close ourselves in, close the blinds, lock your doors, stay inside. Everybody is going to be going through their internal process, their own activation, essentially. And the ones who, essentially, how I've kind of been told is, it's not like we're going to just drop down in the street. It's like our bodies are going to start feeling very dense, very heavy, and we're going to get this inclination to be like, okay, go lie down, go be in your own space. And the ones that are struggling, worrying about their loved ones, worrying about what's going on externally, worrying about this, worrying about that, is everyone okay? This needs to get done. Do I have this? All of the monkey mind thoughts, because we're in survival mode. We've been in survival mode for so long. Like, that's naturally how many will think who don't know what's going on here. So having no fear towards this event is really important as well, because this is a time where we go deeply into self, and not everybody will activate at that time, and not everybody will integrate those frequencies. And the more you can just allow it to be and allow it to surrender in, you don't need anything. You don't have to worry about supplies. It's like you're going to be in stasis, which essentially just means you're kind of like coma-like. I don't think we'll be actually in comas. I think we'll be somewhat conscious, but it's also going to be dark. We're going to be in darkness. So it really is entering our own void, our own womb space, because we are rebirthing out of this time, this darkness. It's a rebirth. And that time is the most crucial moment of this whole kind of incarnation, because that's the deciding point, really. Am I going to align and activate and surrender? Because we're going to be shown in this time the things we need to still heal to activate to the higher frequency. There's going to be memories coming up. There's going to be things shown to us. We're going to be taken back to woundings and traumas and points that we need to revisit, because it needs to be healed, it needs to be released for us to actually be able to hold the higher frequency that we're moving through.
Which is
And
why we keep going on about doing the work now, so that it's
yes,
easier when the three darkness days come. Mhm.
absolutely. And I actually, I think I said this on the last podcast. I'm like, what you do now is more important than the actual event. How you prepare yourself, how you prepare your family. It's like, it really, really, truly is. You will be taken care of in that space. You don't have to worry about human things, having food, having water, having all of that. Like, you will be provided for. You will not have phones or music, or like, we will be out. Like, it's not a time to just like, all right, let's hunker in for 3 days, and get through it and we'll see what comes out the other side. It's like, it is a deep time of internal process for us to really, really surrender. Some people will really struggle with this, Sarah. They will really struggle with this because there's people that are just doers. There are people that just need to help, need to be involved, need to be making sure everybody else is good, and like, those are the people who are lovely, but are going to struggle the most because they won't be able to just sit with self. They won't be able to just surrender in and just allow it to be. They're going to be fearful. They're going to be fighting it. They're going to be like, I'm not controlling this. I have no control here. And it's going to be the fight or flight. It's going to be that fear space coming up. And you can sit in that for however many days. I don't know how long we're actually going to be in this frequency bubble. Whether it'll be the full 3 days. There's things that they won't tell us because it's unknown quite exactly how that's going to land. But we don't have to worry about. Yeah, exactly. The timeline changes. The time changes because it's based on how many people are awakening and where the frequency is shifting. And the Schumann resonance doesn't lie, like, it's like we can see all these activations coming in. We can see all this energy coming in. And this is what we're required to do, is just do what we need to do to make it easier on ourselves, really. And that's clearing the physical vessel. That's just taking care of, honestly, like, my guides keep telling me, and this is why it's the first wave. And I'm like, when I work with clients and we're doing like a full life redirection, physical body is always what I start with, because you're integrating energies, you're connecting. But I'm like, if your pineal gland's calcified, and you're eating burgers every day, and it's like, that's great. You can have all the intention in the world, but like, you have to create the vessel for higher frequencies. We are moving from carbon-based bodies to crystalline. They don't require the same things. They can't sustain themselves on the same things that our carbon-based bodies did. And that's also why our diets are shifting, like why we feel like fasting sometimes, and why we actually feel nourished by smaller amounts of food, lighter foods, higher frequency foods. And that nourishes us on levels that these other things are becoming more and more obvious are not. It keeps us like kind of dull and dense, and we need to be vibrant. Like, food is an energy. How we nourish ourselves is determining how much light we can take in, because we're moving to a light body. That's what we're doing. And to activate that and to get into that space, we have to, we have to do the work. But the work, what's required, is not that hard. It's literally just like slowing down, giving up things that are taking your energy. It's like, it requires to give up things that we love to do, or things that we escaped into. And it's like, there's things that are really changing, like the new financial system, the QFS coming in, the quantum financial system is 90% finalized, and there's still a couple things. Also, the new education system that I've been talking about, there's going to be new education systems coming out very soon, where masters and diplomas and certifications, same designation as going to university or college, you can get through group work, working in groups and working in different ways, and which is more conducive to the way the new world is moving. So like, the way we educate ourselves, the way we receive information, the way we connect and create tribes and groups is changing too. So the worrying about the jobs and the grind and the hustle, like, that is old days, old world. Like, there's no room for that here. And if you need to take a day off work, guys, take a day off work. Honor your body, honor your physicality, honor your mental space. It's so important. And we also have to remember too, it's like, a lot of us are fearful of our own light. Like, I know we talk about how there's fear of the darkness because it's the unknown, but like a lot of us are actually diving right into our darkness, diving right into understanding that. And I think what also doesn't get acknowledged is like fear of success, fear of our light. How light can we be? How much can we create? Like, how much can we grow and expand? And some of us are fearful of seeing those parts of ourselves that shine so bright because we don't know if we can hold that light and sustain that light. And we haven't been taught that that's safe to trust. We've been taught
Yes.
that good things are taken, that love and light is painful in some ways. And
Mhm.
you see that in the spiritual community, the bypassing, the love and light movement, where everything's beautiful and sunshine. But I'm like, it's about finding that balance and honoring our light and stepping into our light. And when we're triggered by others' light, it means that we're just holding back our own light. And we really just need to remember that, like, we are all one. We are all from source, and we are all extensions of source, just creating and moving and having an experience. So like when you're triggered by another being, you're triggered by that element that is in yourself. Everything is mirrored right now. I don't know if you're finding that, Sarah, but I'm like, everything is mirrored numbers.
Oh, it,
202, 212, 303, 313, like 707, 717. I'm seeing it all day. Also my birth time, which also, if you're seeing your birth time, like, I was like, what does this mean? My guides are like, it means you're rebirthing. And I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I've been seeing my birth time like over and over multiple times a day for like, I don't know, 5 days. And I'm like, oh, that
wow.
makes sense where I'm in a rebirth. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that. And do you know,
mirrors.
that reminded me of a story that I heard the other day, or was a few weeks ago, of somebody being afraid to ask for help for their guides, being afraid of from
Oh
their guides
wow.
and their angels. And I was like,
That just makes me sad. Like
that makes me sad. That, and I know obviously there's a belief, and some people don't believe that, and that's fine. But to be afraid to, it's like being afraid to, it's like being afraid to hug or to love. To ask your guides and your angels is like, to be afraid to ask them for help is a little bit inconceivable for me, but it's a bit sad. It's a big pity.
I didn't, it's sad to me too because our guides, our cosmic team they know us better than we know us. They know us
Yeah.
better than anyone else in our lives. Like, we chose these beings specifically for the mission that we are on in this incarnation because those beings are the ones that can help us the most in this time and space.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they need to put in our path to help us. So, like, and also they love us unconditionally. They love us more than a parent loves a child, if you can even believe that, because we have different concepts of love here, but
Mm-hmm.
it is unconditional. And oh, Sarah, that makes my heart sad,
Yeah. It,
honestly. Like, to think that someone is that fearful.
mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I have to bring this story up. We were talking about it before we got on the call, but I feel like this is a perfect segue into this. So I was working, I just have to share because it's such a contrast of the balance right now. It's the fear
Yeah.
space that you're talking about. That
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I was working a psychic fair. I work some psychic fairs on weekends sometimes, and I was working a
Where
psychic
are
fair.
they? Just for people who are listening that might like to go and find you?
Oh, so I'm in Ontario. It's kind of like a little circuit. And I only have two more psychic shows. It's kind of like ending for the summer, and I couldn't get on the West Coast tour, which I really wanted to do because I just want to go to the West Coast. But I'm in Ontario, so I'm actually haven't put it on my website yet, but I'm doing psychic and mediumship readings now. Like, I kind of my guides punched me in the face. They're like, by the way, you're doing this now. And so all the clients coming to me at this psychic fair were just galactic people wanting their galactic charts read and their past lives and just really beautiful things and mediumship. Like, I can't even tell you, like, and also if I was ever like even questioning whether I was a shadow worker before, I will never again, because the beings that came to me were like, they had like possessions, entity attachments, like people with rare cancers that told they had like 2 years to live, like which I'm like getting information and I have to tell them stuff that like it's controversial, like telling you that like you actually can heal yourself. It's a rare cancer, and what these beings here know, they don't know how to heal it, but you do. So, and that's actually going to become your story and your life. She's a naturopath, this woman who had this cancer, and I'm just like, oh my God, there's so many opportunities. And like I kind of look at this as a psychic fair because I'm just like, I know people coming to me are looking outside of themselves for answers, which I don't necessarily like, I never encourage, but I always make sure people leave, feeling empowered with steps and things that they can do. But anyways, there was apparently they have like I don't know if they're Baptist or Jehovah's. They're pretty intense into their religious beliefs, and they believe that Jesus is the one and only true savior. And me being the shadow worker, I work with heavy entities, deep, dark entities. And so there was a good looking guy standing outside. There was three young people, and they were trying to talk everybody into not going into the room because we work with demons and all these things. And I didn't know that this was happening until I was engaged in the conversation. And then I couldn't extricate myself because it's a teaching opportunity at this point. So I'm like, okay, but I was chatting with this gentleman, and he's kind of like, oh, so you work with demons? And I'm like, well, I work with beings, like I'm like, I don't see things in black and white, good or bad. I'm like, I work with whoever is around that needs it, and he's like, do you befriend them? I'm like, no, I don't befriend anyone that I'm working with. They're just there. Like, I don't have any connotation, whether they're negative or positive. And he's like, but Jesus is the one and only true savior. Like, how do you know that you're helping people? And I'm like, well, I know I'm helping people because they leave my table crying, like hugging me, feeling empowered, and like they feel like they have steps forward on how they can help themselves in their life, or they have clarity, or they connected with a loved one and got answers on something that they've been struggling with for years. I'm like, it's not a question in my mind on whether I'm helping people, and there's no ego here for me. My big thing is giving you your power. If I can help you understand who you are better, then that's what I'm going to do. And he's pretty much, he called me a python. He's like, you have python energy, and I'm like, wow, that's great, thank you, like, that's beautiful. And he's just like, well, it's not like necessarily a good thing. And I'm like, well, I take it as such. Serpents are the original female shamans, and I'm like, they're powerful. And I'm like, I'm a dragon, so like I can see why you're getting the reptile energy, but like, thanks. And I don't think he expected me to receive it like as a positive.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, oh, and I'm like, well, thank you. Like, and by this point, there's other psychics kind of coming out of the room. They can kind of like feel like it when he called me a python, like, and he was actually very even keel. We were very neutral, still respectful. And like, he didn't say it in a rude way, and I didn't take it as such. And I think he was just surprised by my response. And all these other psychics are coming out, and I'm feeling the energy building, and I'm like, and they're observing our interaction, and now I'm understanding what's going on. I'm like, well, I can't extricate now. So he's like, well, Jesus is the one and only true savior. And I'm like, well, actually, I'm like, Yeshua is a Christ consciousness. I'm like, Buddha, Christ consciousness. Like Vishnu, Christ consciousness, like Ganesh, like everyone, like all of the beings, I'm like, there's many beings that have incarnated as Christ consciousness. I'm like, most people don't understand that. Buddha, it's like, there's certain energies. I'm like, we all have Christ consciousness within us. So, and he's like, but what do you mean by consciousness? I'm like, exactly. Like, I'm like, you are looking outside of yourself for your power. You are looking externally, and you are coming deeply from fear, because he's like, well, he's the only one that you can atone for your sins with. And I'm like, I don't agree. Like, I'm like, he embodied an energy, the Christ consciousness, to come to earth to show humans what we are capable of doing. He's not saying, hey, look at me, I'm more powerful than you, worship me. He didn't want that. He came to be like, I'm coming in human form to show you your divinity, to show you your power, to show you that you can do all the things that I do and more. And you take your power. Stop looking externally for this other thing, which his teachings are distorted, but this is literally presenting in front of me. And I'm just like, okay, like, he didn't understand what Christ consciousness was. What I did find interesting is he entrained to my view by the end, and he was calling Jesus Yeshua, which I found quite interesting. And I'm like, I don't know if anything landed, but I'm just like, I really appreciate your heart and your intention. He's like, but I'm like, I'm going to go back to my table. Like, I'm here to help people, here to make some money. So and he's like, can I pray for you? And like all the other psychics are like, oh my God, you know, they're all worked up. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And like they're looking at me like, what is wrong with this girl? And I'm just like, okay. So he's like, help Lonna like move away from the darkness, like help her like atone for her sins and repent, and like through the Jesus, one and only true savior, da 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 da. And I'm like, I received it with an open heart. I said thank you. And I said, you know, I really appreciate your good intention. And, you know, I said the same thing to you prior. And I'm like, it's to me, it's similar to like someone being like, Happy Hanukkah, you know? And I'm like, I'm not Jewish, but like, I know your intention is good. I know you mean well for me. So to me, your intention is far more important than the message, really, because I mean, it's not landing, let's be real. But
Yeah.
the fact that you're trying to save me, your intention from your skewed perception is that you are trying to help me, to save me from going into these hell realms, or, you know, the depths of hell, through this one being who's the only savior who can save all beings. Like, it's so crazy to hear about. But I'm just like, I literally was like, I wish I could have just been like, well, I hate to break it to you, but your Bible and the words that you follow are actually written by the Dark Agenda Anunnaki, who wrote that to keep people not in their power and to keep humanity enslaved. But I didn't go there. I thought that was a little heavy for that conversation. But it just was what it was. And I'm like, I appreciate your heart. I'm not in resonance with what you're saying, and I don't agree with you. But I'm also not here to convince him. I'm not here like he is to be like, I need you to understand what I'm saying. And I used to be like that. If this was Lonna 2 years ago, I would have engaged in I would have felt the fire in my body. The dragon would have come out, like, and I would have just been like, I need to prove, I need to teach, you're wrong and I'm right. Not even you're wrong, I'm right. I'm not that way, but like just being like, well, I know that his perception is wrong, but also he thinks that too. That, and if whatever I'm saying is going to reiterate his point, there's no, like, we're just kind of butting heads on this. So like, I just couldn't believe. I live in Toronto. It's multicultural. One of my best friends who's going to be coming on the podcast is from Mississippi, the Deep South. And I was fully channeling her. She's not even the Deep South, but I'm like, the energy there is Deep South.
Yeah.
I was channeling her because this is very prevalent for her. It's an everyday thing. And I just have never experienced that. And I just started working for this company, and they were just like, this happens often. So, you know, like, just be conscious of it. Like, we don't generally engage. And I'm like, I didn't know. Like, I genuinely didn't know this was a thing. I've never been around this before. Like, everyone's multicultural here, like, somewhat respectful of their viewpoints. So for someone to be so in it, but I will say this, he was very respectful. Like, the other psychics were the ones that were getting up in arms. I was very even keel because I saw this as an opportunity. And like, but I'm just like, wow, like, the world that I am in, I just do not see that. And I needed to see that, Sarah. I needed to see that, to be like, whoa, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's because there are people like him, while well-intentioned, you are so deeply ingrained in giving your power away, of looking externally, of not, like, and literally so targeted in that, being like, one being only is your only way of like, can you imagine living with that confinement in your mind, and that understanding that none of this is in my control, that like, I'm just, you know, like, Jesus, and also in human form Jesus, not even understanding the divinity and the power of yourself. Like, it hurts my heart to know that there's still people that are feeling this. And it's the same with your client that was scared of her guides. I'm just like, it was a wake-up call for me to be like, this is why we're doing what we do, Sarah. This is why we're doing the work. This is why we do what we do, to help people awaken. And it's not like believe what we believe. It's find your own truth, find your own power within that truth, and just be willing to see things differently, be willing to shift your perspective and to surrender to ways that are not clear.
Yeah. Well done for holding that up. I admire how you handled it, because that was like a breakthrough, not only for you, but for everyone who was listening. And it's like a rippling effect in different scenarios, because we're going to come across people who we don't align with in every walks of life. Politically speaking, I don't know, our neighbors who we don't get on with, but we have to kind of accept and meet them halfway and kind of find a path to unity somewhere.
Precisely. Yeah, find that unity. And that's why it's so like, and we have to be compassionate and just, like you said, meet them where they're at. It's just like, if we're a little farther along, we're a little farther along. But I'm like, that's then now our responsibility to help others in their process to get where we are. Just like we have others helping us move our process. It's a progression, right? And it's just like we're all like when we look at unity really as the all, we are all one. And it's such a cliche thing to say, but that's what it is. We say that because it's real. And so if we can truly embody the understanding that you are me and I am you, and your journey and where you're at, like, why would I not want to help you get to a better place, to live in a happier space, to feel more. I have like so many goosebumps right now. My guides are like cheering in the background. They're doing this. And I'm like, humans don't really do that, but they're doing this because they're trying to like emulate like celebration.
Imaginary pom-poms.
Yeah, oh yeah, you guys can't see me. So yeah, they're doing the pom-poms over the shoulder, and I'm like, it's kind of funny, but anyways, yeah, like I could talk about this all day. I just feel like we have a role to play. When we're evolving and moving through it, if we know kind of what's going on, share it with others. Dispel the fear. And what dispels the fear is taking ownership over your own experience. And allowing things to sink around you, allowing things to crumble around you, allowing things to fall around you, and knowing that you're held and solid and safe in that process, because we don't know what the hell is coming. We don't know. Like, we can have understandings. My guides are like updating me on little like shifts, but I really feel like we're gonna know when this like frequency, like when this big 3 days of darkness is coming. I feel like we're gonna intuitively know. I personally feel like I'm gonna get messages. I'm gonna be putting it out there to everyone. So make sure you're following me. Make sure you're following Sarah, because I'm like, I know beings that are intuitive, I'm gonna get the messages and I'm gonna like sound the alarms, and just be like, because really, it's not even about, it's more about, we don't know when it's gonna happen. So the more control, the more ownership we're taking now in the day-to-day, the little steps, it's like it can happen at any time now. Between now, like I personally feel like it's going to happen, by the end of 2027. A lot of people say 2028. Some people say 2032, but I don't, the feeling feels more frenzied. The timeline feels closer than that, but that can shift. So, I mean, and whenever it comes, it comes. But the daily work that we're doing to clear our vessels, to clear our bodies, integrate in, align more with like, what feeds our heart and what feels good, that is just preparing us for the transition. And we don't really know what that looks like. Like, most people I've told that we're going to be kind of paralyzed or in stasis are like, what? Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, it's going to require us to just surrender. Like, it's not going to feel comfortable being like, I can't move. But the more we fight it, the more we're like, I can't move. I need to do this. I need to do that. It's just like you're creating that. And the more you just let it be and breathe into it, the transition will be that much easier. But we don't know when that will be. So really just honoring your process, giving it day to day, and you're going to see things falling away in your life. Like it's happening to me, it's happening to people around. You're also going to see things placed in your path, new people, new opportunities. So it's like the more you align, the more you will trust, because things are happening in your life to have you trust, to have you convinced that something's going on.
Yeah. Oh, I could listen to you all day long. I love your wonderful wisdom.
Aw, thanks, Sarah. I could talk all day long, which I probably isn't the best for everyone. I'm like,
oh, it is. It's the best for everyone.
Oh,
thank you
you
so much. Thank you, Lonna, for coming onto the episode, and I cannot wait for you to come back.
Oh, thanks, Sarah.
What a lovely chat with Lonna, as always. I literally could listen to her all day long and never get bored. Do you know what's so beautifully synchronistic? Is that I can already notice in my circles, my clients and students, that they're already starting to surrender without even realizing. It's like they're naturally taking a step back, releasing control, going with the flow, and allowing that higher intelligence to lead the way without even realizing. I'm so glad. And it seems to feel good that they're trusting the process. Remember to reach out to either Lonna or I, or even both of us, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed about it all and you've no one else to speak to. You're not alone. Or get in contact with a friend, family, or somebody you can confide in. It's so important to talk about these big changes and how you feel in order to offload it all. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, write it down. Have a chat with yourself, your higher self. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so grateful, as always. From my heart to yours. Take care.